Hey y'all, happy Sunday. Hope everything is going well for you and yours. This is the portion of the show where we let YouTube send out the notifications via social media, let folks know that the broadcast is getting ready to start. We'll sit here and we'll count down the next 2 minutes before I push that button and go live. If you happen to be watching this on replay, go ahead and scrub past this graphic until you see my smiling face. If you have any questions and you're joining us today in the live chat, feel free to go ahead and add those questions to the live chat now, and we'll get to them in due course during this live Q&A session. So, sit back, relax, grab a beverage, and we'll get going in about 30 seconds. Hey y'all, happy Sunday. Hope everything's going well for yous and yours. Good grief, I need a shave. Oh my gosh. Well, let's see. It has been a busy week. And I am happy to say the light at the end of the tunnel is not a train. Those of you who follow me on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter, you already know the big story. And if you are real observant, you will see about right there over my shoulder, there is there's something big right here next to me in the way. And I want to give a shout out to my nephews, DJ, Nate, Travis, and Jake. Thank you very, very much for your help. Yeah, the CNC is now in here, as well as one of my big rolling toolboxes and a bunch of other associated garbage. And the video for that will be coming out in about 3 weeks. But that's behind the scenes, inside baseball. But I'm getting there, thankfully. So it's just kind of, I won't say a comedy of errors. It's more or less just trying to coordinate a bunch of things going on. And it's coming together. Thankfully, it's coming together. I do want to say that I am very, very glad that I went with the spray foam insulation in here. It was expensive, and I know that, but it is well worth it. I have right now, I just have a little, you can just see the top of it right there. It's a little 1500 watt quartz heater right here. And I come out this morning and it was 40 degrees Fahrenheit. I'm not sure what that is in Celsius. And I turned that on, closed the door, and went back in the house. I came out a half hour later and I had to shut it off. It will run you out. So hot in here. So I turned that off about 45 minutes ago, and it's nice and toasty in here. This spray foam insulation really, really does the trick. It's expensive, but if you're thinking about building a shop, consider it. It's well worth the money. Well worth the money, in my opinion. I could be wrong. Okay, let's see. I don't have a real topic today, other than the shop shed move and everything that's going on. but we do have a bunch of questions in here. And I saw one earlier that from Norm Peterson, that made me do a little bit of research. And that was a good thing, because I have seen specifically this case. And Norm's question is, I have an 8-inch by 16-inch part of a car dash. How do I make a copy of this so I can put it into VCarve to make a new one? I think he meant. The item is a flat piece of wood for a British car dash. One of my longtime subscribers and a buddy of mine online, we've PM'd back and forth. I've known him in an online sense for about 5-6 years now, by the name of Rob Schuster. He comes in here every once in a while. He's the fellow who made the machine specifically to cut the inside of drum hoops, and who makes snare drums and toms on the CNC, and he's carving them and doing epoxy inlays in them and everything else. Really does some excellent work. One of the first things he did on his YouTube channel, and one of the first things that he did just with CNC in general, was he made walnut dash insert overlays for Triumph TR7s and TR8s. He would be the person to talk to. His name is Rob Schuster. And just kind of preemptively, Norm, before we went live, I put a link to, he did a video on cutting out that overlay on his CNC. But there, his contact info is there on his channel. He is the person you want to talk to. He's done it. He's made quite a few. And he's the guy that you need to talk with, because he specifically has done this thing that you want to do. I did another quick search because your question was more, how do I make a copy of this so I can put it into VCarve to make a new one? Peter Pasuelo did a similar video on his channel, CNC Nuts, a few years back. It was episode 110, where he wanted to cut a pocket for, in this case, a crescent wrench, an adjustable end wrench. And he showed how to take a picture of that wrench and then import that into VCarve and do a bitmap trace to get it into VCarve, and then make his adjustments from there to distort it to get the correct measurements for length, width, etc., etc. So those are a couple of ways right there. One, probably, depending upon how complex it is, probably the easiest would be just to take accurate measurements and draw it. But there is also the option of taking a photograph and then importing that and doing a bitmap trace. Then there's another option, would be to take that piece down to someplace like a FedEx, Kinko's, or Office Depot, where they will do large format scanning, and have them put that piece on the scanner with a white sheet of paper over the top of it so you have good contrast, and let them do a scan that way. Then import it, have them scan it as a, depends on where you go. Some of them can scan it as a DXF file, but not everybody can do that. If they're scanning that, have them scan it as a PDF or JPEG image, and then do a trace off of that. So there are several ways of doing that. And if you can do a high resolution scan, large format, I've worked with a local surveying supplier, as a matter of fact, here locally. They can go up to 3 foot wide, 2 feet tall on their scanner. So there are multiple ways of getting that done, and getting that entered into the software so that you can either trace it or just straight use the vectors that they will scan for you. So there are all kinds of different ways. Um, I see here David Schneider is saying, digitize it. ShopBot has a digitizer. Yes, that's another way of doing it. If you're looking for 3D, I'm assuming you're talking about the digitizing probe. That is an option if you know someone or somebody, someone or of a company that does do digitizing. That's another valid um, method of getting that put into the software. But yeah, it's probably the easiest way is to just, like I said, take accurate measurements and draw it in yourself, depending upon how complex it is. I don't know if you're talking about an insert to just, go around the gauges or what have you. Um, but, you know, depending upon how complex the design you want is, just drawing it in yourself would probably be the quickest and easiest. But yeah, there are many, many, many ways of doing that. So David Pingle says, now that you brought up Peter, he hasn't put out video for a long time. Is he okay? As far as I know, he's perfectly fine. He's an extremely busy guy. He does have a full-time job and he has a bunch of commitments. So he just finished not too long ago the complete and total rebuild of his machine. And we are getting into the holidays and everybody gets busy, busy, busy. So, yeah, as far as I know, he's perfectly fine. So, but yeah, I do miss him posting. He doesn't post as much as he used to, and I wish he would get back to it. But what can you say? Let's see here. We had a couple more questions. Let me scroll back up and we will find some. Okay, there's Norm's question. And I know Ayal Peleg had one here. I got to find you, Ayal. There you are. Ayal Peleg wants to know, do you know if anybody built a Gatton CNC with an automatic tool changer? No, I don't. I don't know of anybody who has done that. But in the spirit of never say never, that just means I don't know them. When it comes to an automatic tool changer, I have to kind of claim ignorance on some of this. I've never used one and I haven't looked into them. So I don't know if there are standalone units that you can make or purchase to add one to a Gatton CNC. I would assume you're either using Mach 3, Mach 4, or some other generic CNC controller software that would support an automatic tool changer. I would go to the support forum of the controller software. Like if you're using Mach 3 or Mach 4, I would go to ArtSoft's support forum for that software and start searching in there and asking questions in there. Those guys are wizards. I mean, Jer himself and let's see, Paul Campbell, they have forgotten more about this software than I have ever learned. Having said that, I don't know, again, if there are standalone units that you can purchase to just add to have it done, but there is certainly a way to build one. It's more in the control software side than it is in the physical assembly side. But as far as your question is about somebody adding one to a Gatton CNC, I don't know anybody who has done one, but that doesn't mean it's not possible. It's just, or that somebody hasn't, just that I haven't heard of it. So if you have a Gatton CNC and you have added an ATC, I'd like to hear from you. And evidently, so would I. So, yeah, um, that would be a a big thing. Uh, wow. I don't know. I see Dave Gatton is in the chat, and he says, I spoke with Peter the other day. He's fine, but very busy. Yeah, I know he has a full-time job. And while we have the man here himself, Dave, have you heard of anybody adding an ATC to a Gatton CNC? That would be an interesting project to do for sure, and pretty fun. So, and hey, Ayal, blaze the trail, man. Be the guy to experiment and do the footwork. I know, but yeah, it would be fun. Would be fun to see. Let's see here. Cruising down the list here. Okay, Richard Poulin wants to know, can you tell me in what circumstances we use the recalculate toolpath button in Mach 3? I think you mean the regenerate toolpath button. Um, I have to apologize here from the start, simply because I don't have Mach 3 on this laptop. I need to get it installed so I can do screen shares and what have you. But I believe it's in the toolpath tab, there's a regenerate toolpath button that will go through the G code you have loaded and regenerate it if you have made any changes in offset or anything like that within, after mounting your material and what have you. It's also sometimes used if you've homed your machine and you have it set to where Mach 3 is displaying your total work surface, and your project is, say, way down low and down at the bottom left corner. Well, you change the view to where it's just showing your project. You would click that regenerate toolpath button so that it would change the display, so that the display in Mach 3 is just showing the toolpath, and your X, Y, and Z zeros are all correct that you have after homing the machine. It's basically to do with the display, but not exactly, because you can set your X, Y, and Z zero and then put in an offset in Mach 3 and then regenerate the G code. The only problem with that is you have to do that for all of them. Otherwise, you might cut something over here, and if you don't regenerate it for the next G code, it'll start cutting over here. So basically, all I ever really do, I don't mess with the regenerate toolpath button. I haven't needed it. So it's it's a case of probably about 3/4 of Mach 3 I have never gotten into and never played with. I don't use the bells and whistles. To me, I do all of that in VCarve or Aspire, save the G code, and I just use Mach 3 to run the G code. It's got a bunch of wizards in there where you can cut shapes and do various other things, and you can set it up to do everything but brew your coffee first thing in the morning. I have just never used it because I just haven't needed it. So, Norm Peterson, thank you very, very much for the super chat. I really appreciate it. You guys are just absolutely the best. I thank you profusely from the bottom of my heart. Let's see here. Let me cruise back up to the top, and we have some more. Let's see. Make sure that there wasn't somebody before. Yeah, there wasn't. Okay. John Rumley says, hi, Mark. I was watching your cut a taper with VCarve video. Could that be cut as a two-sided project and made into a bowl? Yes and no, John. And I say that because I actually started recording a video on doing exactly that. But then I ran into the problem of tabs with the molding toolpath. And what I mean by that is when you use the molding toolpath, you're cutting all the way down whatever profile. You cannot add tabs to a molding toolpath. You can't add 3D tabs. There is no provision to add tabs to a molding toolpath. The molding toolpath was not designed to carve all the way through the material. It was designed to carve a relief on the surface of the material, then come back and use a profile toolpath that you can add tabs to cut the part out. So you can get to a certain point on making either the bottom or the top, but without the ability to add tabs. Okay, here's where my thought process goes. You've got your piece of material and you carve out the inside of the bowl using the molding toolpath. That works great. You flip your material over and you have another profile that you're using to cut out the back of the bowl or the bottom of the bowl. That rim of that bowl is all the material that's going to be left by the time you get done with that taper all the way down to where the bit is cutting through the material into your spoil board. Is that going to be enough to hold that piece of material there, that bowl in place? Personally, I'm a little bit concerned about that. Now, you could do it to where you don't cut all the way through, but then you'd have a bunch of cleanup to do. And if you're fine with that, great. Just leave, say, 1/8 of an inch of stock so that your bit doesn't cut all the way through. The short answer is yes, you can do it. The long answer is you need to be careful, because if it cuts all the way through the material with just that little narrow rim holding it in place, you run the risk of it getting to a certain point and then it breaking free and throwing something at you, or just at the least destroying the bowl and all the work you've put into it. So I've been talking to the folks at Vectric behind the scenes, believe me, and about a way to add tabs to that molding toolpath. Once that's there, then I will reshoot that video and I'll cut one out here in the shop now that I've got the CNC moved out here. But you just kind of got to be very careful about how you approach it. But yes, it can be done. So let's see. Let me cruise back up here and find. Okay. Mario Montoya says, I'm going to profile cut out 6 hardwood parts, 0.6 inches thick. I have a 3/16 diameter, 1 inch cutting depth end mill. Okay, sounds good. I'm worried about breaking the bit. Is a pass depth of 50% of the bit diameter and a feed rate of 40 inches per minute reasonably safe to start with? Yes, it is. Generally, in fact, that's pretty conservative. A pass depth of 50% of the bit diameter, cutting diameter, so it'd be half of that 3/16. That's a pretty conservative start, and 40 inches per minute is a very conservative start. If you can adjust your feed rate as you're cutting, then you'll probably find you need to increase that feed rate a little bit, because it'll just be cutting very slowly. But you're also cutting, I won't say very deep, but you're cutting a reasonable amount, and you're cutting fairly slowly to start. So I think you're going to find you'll be increasing your feed rate as you go. And it's just going to depend on what kind of material it is, because something like Walnut is going to carve differently than hard maple, which is going to be different from oak, which is going to be different from birch or poplar. So it also depends on the type of hardwood, which species. So I think that's a conservative start. I think you'll find that any adjustment you need to make would be in feed rate, and you'll probably need to increase it a little bit. But it's better to be, to me anyway, it's better to be safe than sorry and start conservative and then speed things up as you go. And when you do start speeding up your feed rate, start for that listening to that bit and see if you hear any chatter. And if you do hear chatter, back it off until that chatter goes away. But do know that as you are cutting, you're going to go with the grain and against the grain. And if you're cutting an outside profile, half of your cut's going to be conventional and half of your cut's going to be climbed. So you may hear a little chatter in one direction, but not in the other. That's normal. That's okay. Just be aware of how much chatter you're getting and listen to your router or spindle. If you hear that bit starting to struggle in any way, slow it down. You can always adjust the feed rate down as easily as you can adjust it up. So, but that's a very conservative start, and I'd say it is a good place to start. So, whenever I'm starting a project that I've never done before, a new technique or a new material or something like that, I start very conservative because it's kind of a guessing game. You can use all the chip load calculators in the world, but if that particular piece of material has a high silica content, or if it's particularly dense at one end and not the other, that chip load calculator is right out the window because that piece of wood just might not like that particular feed and speed. So it's kind of a balancing act. So, okay. I hope that answers that question. Let me see here. Cruise down a little bit more and find some more questions here. Steve Perdue says, I wasn't available last week, but could you go over how to add a new bit that isn't like your other bit, such as a bowl? I assume you mean cutting bit. Yeah, that's fairly simple, and I have done a video of it. Let me make a note to add this video to the description of this video as soon as we're finished live. Basically, it's the same as adding a form tool. And I've done a video on how to add a form tool. In fact, I think I've done more than one to the tool database. A bowl cutting bit, depending upon the manufacturer, can have a profile, a rounded edge, and then a flat bottom. And that flat bottom could be any distance. And depending upon the size of the bit and the manufacturer, the radius could be one or the other. What you'll need to do is you'll need to draw a vector that represents I believe it's the right side of that profile, just half of that profile. Depending upon the manufacturer, they may have that bit profile in a DXF file that you can download right there to make that easier. If not, then just get a good measurement of the cutting edge. If it's like a carbide tipped bit, you want just the cutting edge. And you just want to draw that vector in, get the right radius and the right lengths and heights and everything else. And then just follow the tutorial that I posted on adding a form tool. And like I said, as soon as we're finished here live, I will put a link to that video in the description. And I've written it down, made a note. So let's see here. Brooks Martin says, has anyone tried 3D scans? I have not. There's a name for it. I believe it's photogrammetry or something like that. I have not tried that. It's intriguing as heck, but I also know that it's pretty pricey. But yeah, that's a. I do want to get into digitizing, like David Schneider brought up. I do want to get into touch probe digitizing. I just haven't gotten that far yet, but that's to come. Let's see here. Let me cruise down the road here and see what we have. Russell Faraday says, I put flat things on the machine to copy them, a V-bit used as a pointer, and use the machine numbers to plot the part. Very interesting, Russell. Have you got any kind of a reference that you could add on kind of the process of how you do that? I know there is a process for doing that. I just haven't done it myself. So let's see here. Okay, Brooks Martin says, Meshroom claims it can stitch multi-photos into a 3D model in an STL format. I have not mucked with it yet. That's interesting. That would be very intriguing. If you do get a chance to muck about with it, please keep us updated on how that works. I'd be real interested in that. Okay, Dave did respond. He says, I don't know if anyone has done an ATC on a Gatton CNC. It could be done, but if you need an ATC, you would be smarter to purchase a more expensive CNC that offers that option. It's kind of, I mean, there is some time savings there, but how much? I mean, Dave, you've forgotten more about CNC than I've learned. I don't know how much time you would actually save with an ATC. I mean, it's cool. It's neat to have, but I get your point. The Gatton CNC is it's a lead screw type of machine. It's not rack and pinion. So any time savings you would get would just be however long it takes you to use a wrench to 2 wrenches to loosen that collet, put the new bit in. Because, setting your Z0 is going to be the same whether the machine does it or you do it. So it would just be taking out that bit and putting the new one in. Now, having said that, Chris Holcomb on his channel, I believe, man, the name escapes me and I'm bad with names right now. He posted a video yesterday. I believe his channel is called Creative Custom Carvings. I may be wrong. He posted a video yesterday of a inlaid cutting board he did. He has a big legacy Maverick CNC. We're talking, it's a 5x10 machine. Huge thing. And it has an automatic tool changer on it that he hasn't quite got set up yet. So he did a manual tool change, and the bits are in the tool holders, just as if he would have had the ATC set up. So when it was finished cutting with one tool, it would come up and signal to him it's time for a tool change. He'd hit whatever buttons on his controller, drop that tool, put the new one in with the holder, then hit continue, and it would go over and touch off and go do itself, or go continue on with the G code. I just don't know how much savings you would get with the tool changer. It's very cool. Jack Matson, thank you very much for the super chat. I really do appreciate it. You guys, again, you're you're the best. I mean, just absolutely the best. Yeah, and Dave, this is just like hot rodding. An ATC is cool and all, but it's just like in hot rod. Speed costs money. How fast do you want to go? You know, it's and yeah, he's also asking the same question. Um, how long does it take you to change and re-zero a tool now? I mean, don't get me wrong, it's cool, but is it really necessary? I mean, if you're trying to pump out 1,000 parts a day, then I think Dave's right as well. A lead screw driven machine is probably not the machine for you. You'd probably want to look at something rack and pinion that you can do you know, uh, 800 inches per minute rapids and cut it 300 or 400 inches per minute, because a lead screw driven machine just isn't going to do that kind of speed. And before you ask, no, I don't know anybody who has completely converted a Gatton CNC to rack and pinion. I do know of one person who I haven't seen online in several years who did make their X-axis rack and pinion, but he never went with the Y-axis. So why he did that, I still don't know, but he did convert the X-axis to rack and pinion. But I haven't seen him online in a few years. I don't know, did he get out of it or what? So let's see here. Photogrammetry is when you don't do a 3D scan, but rather take many pictures and calculate the 3D model from the differences between the images. Okay. Yeah. All right. So, like I said, I haven't done any kind of looking into that. I've just kind of seen things, peripherally. Other people are getting into it, but not me. So, let's see. We're still talking about the automatic tool changer. And IL says it would save time and errors on zeroing Z each time, wouldn't it? No, not really. It's still going to use basically the same touch plate. The only difference would be you're not pushing the button to bring it down and hit set zero. The machine would do it without you needing to touch it. Would touch that, click that button. So it's, I mean, like I said, if you're trying to make 1,000 parts a day, then lead screw driven machine is probably not the one for you. But it takes me approximately, if I'm not making a video and I'm just doing it on my own, it takes 45 seconds to change out a bit and zero it, if that. I have the luxury of having more than one 1/4 inch and 1/2 inch collet for my router. So when I'm setting up a project out here, if I'm using a V-bit, I'll put the V-bit in one of my 1/4 inch collets and then my 1/4 inch end mill in the other collet. So it's sitting right here on the table. And when I'm done with the V-bit, the machine comes back to my XY0 location. I just swap it out, put the end mill in, tighten it up, put my touch plate up on the machine and set the Z0 and off I go. It's like, if it's 45 seconds, I'd be surprised. So, I mean, I'm not saying you couldn't do it, IL. You certainly could. But would the expense be worth it? I don't know. Only you can make that decision. Okay, let's see. DB10 wants to know, where can I go for like a starter point? I don't know anything about CNBC, but I want to learn. Well, I'm assuming you mean CNC and not the broadcast network that's for business. There are so many places to start. I wrote an article for my website probably 5 years ago, 4 years ago, uh, called the CNC process for the absolute beginner. And what I'll do as soon as we're finished live here, I will go get a link to that and put it down in the description of this video. So after we're done live, refresh this page. Give me about 10 minutes, then refresh this page, and there will be a link in the description to that article. And it describes the process from beginning to end, from getting the idea in your head to getting that idea. And this is the hardest part for me anyway. The hardest part is getting the idea out of your head and into the computer. Then it goes from there to doing the CAD, the design portion phase, to the CAM machining phase, then to the actual going outside on the machine and cutting it phase, then into finishing. It's 5-step process. And I just describe in general terms how it works and kind of sort of the workflow, but without getting into specifics and without using a bunch of technical jargon. From there, I would highly suggest, and I hope I'm not putting you on the spot, Dave, Dave Gatton over on his website, and I'll put a link to his website, had an article on some things to consider before you buy a CNC router. And it used to be on the front page of his website. I think it's still there. I'm not certain. If it's not, Dave, please let me know, and I won't try to link you. Well, I'll link your website anyway. It's some things to consider before you purchase the CNC. And it's basically, how are you going to use it? Because if you are going to mainly cut wood, that's fine. If you're going to be engraving marble, that's different. If you're going to be cutting metal, that's different. If you're going to be doing a lot of cabinet work where you're cutting huge pieces, that's completely different from someone who is carving wax molds for lost wax method of mold making for jewelry. So it depends on what you're going to be doing. CNC is kind of sort of like a computer in that it'll do all of that stuff, but it may not do two different things at the same time. So, rather than trying to get an all-in wonder, it's better to kind of specialize in certain things. But you have to sit down and take an honest assessment of exactly what you want to do with the router and how you plan to use it. Because it's nice to have a machine that you can throw a piece of plywood on and cut things out. But how often are you realistically going to do that? I mean, I know 4 people who have built 8x4 machines that they can cut a sheet of plywood. 3 of them said it was a waste of money because they don't cut anything that big. They never cut it that big. So just be honest with yourself and take an honest assessment as to what you really want to do with the machine before you spend the first penny. And read, ask questions, get into groups, ask questions, watch YouTube videos, ask questions. If you don't understand something, before you invest a penny or before you commit to something, ask questions. And did I mention ask questions? It's perfectly fine. So, okay, let's see. Devin Cluck says, can you do a bed map with Vectric desktop? I don't know what a bed map is. Do you mean bitmap? Can you trace a bitmap with VCarve desktop? Yes, you can. If I got that wrong, please clarify, because I don't understand the question. Can you create a bitmap in Vectric software? No, it's not imaging software. You can do a little bit of editing, but not much. It's because it's not that type of program. This is for vectors for machining. So depth mapping. Okay. Can you do depth mapping? You can. I may get myself in trouble here. I'm trying to remember. I know Michael Mazalik is out here in the chat. Can you import a depth map into vCarve and carve it? I know you can in Aspire, but I don't know if you can import a 3D depth map into vCarve and carve it. I really don't remember. I know it can be done in Aspire. But Michael is another wizard with this software and has forgotten more than I've ever learned. But I've not gotten to that point with vCarve. And I have since switched to Aspire. So it's very easy in Aspire. Let's see. Richard Canton says, can you talk about zero off the machine bed? How do you set cut depth, etc.? Seems like are at the bottom and looking up. I can't talk about it from experience because I've never done it. I set, generally speaking, all of my tool paths to Z0 off of the top of the material. Now, again, Peter Pasqualo, and I don't know if he did a specific video on it or not. Peter Pasqualo over on his channel, CNC Nuts, he sets his Z0 off of the machine bed because he doesn't want to cut into the spoil board. And that's fine. Personally, I don't care. I think that's what a spoil board is for. Hence the name, spoil. It's there to get cut up. Some people don't want to cut into the spoil board, or they'll put a piece of scrap on it and attach their material to that scrap. I do it when I'm two-sided machining because I don't want to drill holes into my machine bed. I will eventually get into that, but I haven't done anything as far as setting my Z0 off of the machine bed. I will do it just so I have the experience to see which I prefer. I just haven't gotten there yet. So, now, another time when setting a Z0 off of the machine bed, quote unquote, would be a factor, would be if you're using a jig or fixture. If you do a lot of a certain thing and you have a jig or fixture on your table that holds that piece, sometimes setting it off of the machine bed is a better way of getting a more accurate carve depth-wise. But I haven't run across that situation yet. So if you don't want to cut into your jig is what I'm getting at. But I would check Peter Pasqualo's YouTube channel. When we're done with this live, I'll put a link to his channel. I can't think of a specific video where he did that, but I do know he does that commonly. So, and here we go. Brooks Martin wants to know, I hear people using their CNC to make finger or dovetail box joints. I imagine it's as simple as making a clamping jig if your CNC can travel beyond the spoil board. Am I oversimplifying? No, you're not. No, you're not. Basically, that's it. They create a clamping jig for the front of their machine. And I don't know if you saw my Gatton CNC build series, I put a cutout in the front of my machine table where I had intended to make a clamping fixtures just for that purpose, but I never did. I never got to that. Instead, I put a rotary axis mount on there, and that's where my rotary axis sits. Well, I've just never gotten to the point to where I am cutting dovetails or box joints. I do plan on getting there. I just haven't done it yet. So, what can I say? Let's see. Excuse me. Let's see now. And this is going to probably be the last one here. Michael Mazalik, thank you very much. You cannot use the depth map in VCarve. It has to be a 3D model. You can import a depth map into Aspire, but not VCarve. Sorry. You would have to have somebody convert that depth map to an STL file and then send you the STL file so you can import that into VCarve. But the depth map itself cannot be imported into VCarve. I just couldn't remember, Michael. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. So I hope that answers your question there, DBeast 10. This will be the last one here. Christopher Gracefa. Sorry if I butchered your name. First time joining. Welcome aboard. Enjoying it? Good. I imported a 45 dish 3D. When I cut it, I end up with a ridge around the model, not flush with the surface. I set the 0 plane, but still having the issue. Okay. Is that ridge to the outside or to the inside? If it's to the inside, you might want to adjust the depth of the model, the position of the model in your material setup. Meaning, let me go ahead and share here. I don't have a model insert. Okay, there we go. Switch over to Aspire. Meaning over here in your material setup, I don't have a model, so there's nothing to show. But the position of the model in the material, you might need to adjust that to eliminate that ridge. If it's to the outside, let me go back over here and come on, cancel. If that ridge is to the outside, get into the finishing toolpath, do a boundary offset beyond the outside perimeter, do a boundary offset of the bit's diameter, and that'll carry on machining the bit's diameter past the outside boundary of the vector or the model, if that makes any sense. So if you're using a tapered ball nose with a tip diameter of 1/4 of an inch or 1/8 of an inch, in this case, for instance, my 1/8 inch ball nose, I would do a 0.125 boundary offset, then calculate the toolpath. That gets the tip of that bit out away from the edge of that bowl, and that'll should get rid of that ridge. So I hope that helps. It is to the outside. Yeah. Michael Mazalik's correct too. It's do the roughing toolpath as well. And if neither of those work, I would check the model position in the material. I would check the model position in the material. You might have to do a little bit of playing there. Now, let me ask you this so you did do the 0 plane and you still have the issue. Okay, you're only doing finishing. You're not doing a roughing toolpath. Was that something that was... Now, you said you used, in your original post, said you imported a 0.45 dish 3D model. It's quite possible that is in the model. That's modeled into it. It was just something that was overlooked when whoever it was exported that STL file. You might need to do a little bit of cleaning up on that. And Michael would be your guide. There is a way. I just can't think of it off the top of my head. And I've been watching all your videos, Michael. It's information overload. There is a way to basically kind of eliminate that little top edge where that might have been included in that model. I just can't think of it. It's from the Vectric library. Okay, well, that shouldn't be the problem. Wow. I'm going to have to see if I can get in and replicate that. I may have to. Oh, hey, duh. What is your modeling resolution set at? When you go into job setup, what is your modeling resolution set at? And how big is your material? Your material size should be the smallest it can possibly be. And Michael reminded me of this a couple of weeks back in a video. If you, for instance, let's say it's 10-inch diameter, make your material size, let's say 10.5 by 10.5. The reason for that is, okay, you have it at X7. Okay, perfect. If your material size is too big, you have it at X7, that is 4 million points, 4 million nodes, 4 million pixels spread out over that surface. By making that material size just slightly larger than the model size, it concentrates those pixels so that the resolution is more dense, if that makes any sense. Now, if X7 may not be enough, depending upon the size of your dish, as I say, go hold down Shift and click Job Setup, then go back into your modeling resolution and take a look at that resolution and bump that up. You will have 2 more resolutions that you don't know about. So, trying to get rid of a person here. And okay, let me go back and delete this individual. So there we go on that. Other than that, I really can't think of anything else that would be doing that. So, all right, I think I got rid of Bozo the Clown. So the outside edge at the surface. Yeah, that is a puzzler, man. That really is a puzzler because I've not had that issue since I started using the zero plane. So, well, what can happen? What can I say? All right, good grief. I've already been on here for an hour. I want to say thank you to everybody. Thank you, Norm. And thank you. Let me get up here. Jack, for the super chats. I appreciate you guys more than you'll ever know. I really do. Thank you to everybody who has clicked those donate links down in the description. You guys are just absolutely the greatest. Thank you to everybody who has shared my videos. Thank you to everybody that is watching my videos. You all help immeasurably. And today, let's get to on a serious note. Today, and about an hour at 2 o'clock Pacific, that would be 5 o'clock Eastern. I don't know why I can't remember that. Michael Mazalik is previewing his video. It is part 3 of his series on 3D modeling body parts in Vectric Aspire. And this week he's doing eyes. And according to him, the eyes are the hardest part. So I'm looking forward to this. And I hope to see you all there. If you have Vectric Aspire, you need to be there. You need to be watching this because, I mean, he did lips 2 weeks ago. He did noses last week. Now we're moving on to eyes this week. And believe me, this is the number one 3D modeling question I get. How do I do a face? Michael is your guy. And this series has been just absolutely spectacular, Michael. I want to say thank you. So that's going to be at 2:00 Pacific time, 5:00 Eastern time. I will be there. If you have Aspire, I hope to see you there. And let's see, next week is going to be the next Shop Shed video update, in which I installed the flooring and started putting up the trim and everything to get ready for the move in. And then I'm going to press the easy button. The video after that is going to be moving into the shop shed. And spoiler alert, there it is. It is moved. So I'll be doing a live Q&A there, and we'll answer any questions you have. And then after that, I'm going to be putting the channel on hiatus for the holidays because I've got a lot of kids and grandkids to make presents for. And then after that, we'll see you in the new year. I will keep doing the live Q&As every Sunday, even though the channel is on hiatus. It just won't be projects until the new year. Katie, bar the door. So I'll see those of you who join us over on Michael's video in about a little less than an hour. And everybody else, I hope to see you next weekend. Now go do something cool. Make some chips. And have fun, above all. And I'll see you next week. Thank you again, everybody. Y'all take care.